Wonderful. All right, we are back and we're good to go. Okay, so we'll go to item number 5.4. Mr. Bishard and Mr. Ranka, mental health grant submission.
All right, so I'll provide a little bit of an overview here, and then I'll ask Lori to add anything that I might miss, and I'm sure you might have some questions. What I'll say, we've talked about this before, but the government's put in a number of grants which involve a lot of work to access money in a different number of portfolios. The one that I wanted to highlight, and it had a deadline of September 15th, was this mental health grant. Now, why I'm highlighting it today, it is a board priority to work on mental health of students. But I also want to mention, like when we talk about red tape, Lori and her team, we were talking yesterday, we kind of did a ballpark estimate. It's been 40 hours to prepare this grant. So that's a lot of time when you, spread that over 3 people or 4 people, but it is a lot of work to try to access the money. But with that said, we've applied for $300,000 over 2 years. One of the conditions of the grant is you had to have partnerships with other organizations or agencies. So the first organization that we're looking to partner with is the Canadian Mental Health Association, and that's to do some assist training, which is work around suicide and suicide prevention. And that would involve training our family school liaison workers and our administrators. The second partnership is with Kevin Cameron, I'll say. I think you're familiar with Kevin. But it is to do some test training, and that is crisis response training. So when you do have a crisis in a school, that could be a death of a student, a staff member. We've experienced many of those over the last few years. And that would also be training for administrators and FSLWs. And then the last one is we would like to hire a behavior health consultant. And that would be partnering with primary care network. So that is kind of a little bit of an outline of what we're asking for and the partnerships that are involved. But I think that those services would assist the division to move forward in this work. So with that, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Lori, but I know that you may have questions and she would be better suited to answer them, as she's worked quite a bit in preparing for this grant, as I mentioned.
All right. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I would. Oh, sorry. I would say the first 2 items, the assist training and test training, were items that our administrators did bring forward as a priority. We did a professional development survey as to what they would like to receive for professional development over the year, and those are 2 items that came up close to the top. So it is meeting a need that they also see as a priority.
Okay. All right. I believe this is part of our priority, and hopefully we are successful. 200,000, that would be great. Yeah, that's all I can comment on that. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, so just to clarify, you said it was 300,000 over 2 years?
Yeah, correct.
That doesn't sound like a lot for those partnerships.
It's not a lot. I think the bulk of it too would go towards the hiring of the behavior health consultant. But some of the other training, like the assist, I believe is $2,000 a person for that training, or is it the test that's $2,000? One of the trainings.
Test.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not a lot, but when you have to train, 30, 35 people at $2,000, it's quite a bit. So the assistance from this grant would come in quite handy.
Just a follow-up question then. With the regards to the behavioral health consultant, if we're hiring this person, would it be just a contract then, or how would is there a plan for an ongoing? If this is just a grant, what do we see the future with this position being?
It would be a public position essentially, yeah, and it would be, because we're partnering with the primary care network, they would help us to hire.
Okay.
That I think we've seen, I know we've seen an increase in behaviors with all of our students, and so this would be a helpful intervention piece that we can implement if we are successful.
And just further to that, in 2 years, as Lori said, as a pilot, then administrators and school staff weigh in on whether they want to take division resources to continue the program or to let it lapse.
I'm just curious, the behavior health consultant, would that be a registered nurse or social work
My
background?
understanding is they're typically social workers. They help with the basically assessment, evaluation of behaviors and treatments. They can connect them to community resources. That's their primary role.
So it's a first step and then they will
That's correct, yeah.
lead them where they need to go. Thank you.
To me, like you've clarified, always my concern when we hiring such professionals is the windshield time because of the vastness of our jurisdiction. That will be good to have 2 or 3 stations at different areas, so we don't have that money. But at the end of the day, it's the good work that they will do. And as a social worker, the kids are coming to our doors with a lot of behaviors that are very much unknown to us. Right? So,
I think the other part of that is that when we have our own people, then we can direct them to where they're needed, rather than just, if we're partnering with other divisions as we did with RCSD, thank you. With RCSD, well, they kind of went where the greater need was, and often it was with other bigger divisions. So in this case, yeah, windshield time is not great, but we can mitigate that by changing the length of the day, or changing, if they start at 8 or 7:30 and maybe end a little bit earlier, or that kind of thing, so that we get them into schools when kids are in the schools.
all right. Okay. We'll go to, if there are no further questions or comments, item number 6. Items now. All right. So I will give that back to Trustee Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee had discussed compensation in the area of benefits for the trustees. And we discussed the items at length, and I will actually hand it over to Mr. Blackcraft to provide us with some background.
So this is all in the board's package, and I'm not going to go through the preamble. Essentially, what the Finance Committee looked at was alternate plans, finally settling in with ASAVP. ASAVP advised us that if going with the plan, we had to feel what the plan that staff at the division are at for trustees. So those plans carry a premium of $195 for a single, or $490 per month. Sorry, these are both per month for family coverage under those plans. So then it was a matter of how to implement them. And the committee asked me to come back with looking at the implementation of something along those lines with regards to 90% being board or division paid for trustees at the family rate. So when I was looking at evaluating that, what do we have for surplus resources or contingencies? I'll be quite honest, when I do the administrative board and system administration budget, try and ensure that there is some dollars that are unallocated. They are listed as part of our supplies, but we really haven't designated them. For the budget this year, when we did it in the spring, I identified that there was only about $3,000. Looking at what the cost of benefits would be at the full family rate at 90%, it was estimated, and I realized that not everybody will maybe take family benefits. I also realized that we were basing it on 8 trustees, assuming there would be a member, an appointed trustee from the First Nations. So those are some of the assumptions there when developing what that estimated higher end cost would be. Well, with $3,000 available, I need to look for some way to free up space within the system administration and board governance area, because we are limited by the resources that we have and the expenses that we already have in that area. So what we found was that we could transfer about $95,000 of costs over to instruction. Now, it doesn't mean that we no longer have to pay for that. It just means that we have to use instructional revenues to cover those costs when we transfer them out of board and system administration funding. But I also looked into the future and in discussion with the superintendent. There's commitments from the board for staffing costs and wages that would increase next year by 17,000. So it needed not only to cover trustee benefits, but looking into the future, what other additional costs will the division have in that envelope that's limited moving forward. And so that's where looking at what costs we're transferring out, identifying this 95,000 helped us not only to cover the cost of trustee benefits, but also possibly future costs associated with this block. Now, moving forward, as earlier mentioned by Trustee Miller, in terms of that 3-year period, the province may change what we get for funding for board and system administration. They haven't changed it in 3 years, but we're a larger division, even with COVID, than we were 3 years ago. And perhaps they will increase what we have available or can spend within that envelope. But I don't know what that looks like. So I'm still looking to create room within the dollars that we have. Also looked at benefits do not have to be family. Individuals can opt for single. So then that created a range now on the low end of $16,000 all the way to the high end of $42,000 for potential costs. The other thing is I want to make sure trustees were very comfortable with whatever that decision is with regards to benefits. That's part of what we report as a division, and in terms of recognizing that there's an increase specific for trustees. The trustees are comfortable with how that may look to the public in general, and how they are willing to talk and discuss any changes to trustee remuneration or benefits with the public in question. So again, trying to make sure that that's an item also in your mind and part of your context. So I looked at 5 options for the finance committee. Division coverage of ASCVP at 90% of premium costs regardless. If we only covered 90% of single, because you don't have to take family, so the board could decide that they'd only cover 90% of the single. But those 2 options didn't really talk about a trustee who's ineligible for benefits under ASCVP. ASCVP does have some restrictions that are related to age in terms of people that they can carry under their programs. So the other 3 options I looked at is saying, okay, what if we did it as benefits to the maximum of this, allowing for provisions that if you could not take benefits under ASCVP, you found an alternative carrier, you'd be reimbursed for that. What if we looked at 90% of premiums for single or family? So if you're working outside of ASCVP, there would be a maximum that you could be reimbursed. That would be equivalent to the ASCVP contributions. And then at the finance committee meeting, the last option that the committee asked to be added for the board to consider was maybe not at 90% of premium costs, but looking at 50% of premium, with the intention that if you were not able to access ASCVP, you could be reimbursed up to a similar maximum amount, so that you would have a similar coverage, whether you were able to be under ASCVP or you had to seek alternate coverage. So again, there's a bit of a discussion about what each of those options mean. In your backgrounder, I said, okay, we've got this cost transfer of $95,000. So when I'm estimating benefit costs, what does that leave us for future years if nothing else changes? And so that's where we've got benefit costs, and they range, again, from $16,000 to $42,000. But that option 5 at 50% brings the estimated benefit cost to around $23,500. So that, when we take that off the 95, that gives you a range of dollars that are available either for current year or future year commitments that maybe aren't determined as of yet, for within that envelope. What we do know, what I've estimated, is a commitment for wages under the central office protocol. We've estimated that cost next year, that will cost $17,000. So I've made it and said, okay, out of that room, I know I'm going to be taking $17,000. So we're going to be left with, if nothing else changes, somewhere between $35,000 or up to $61,000 for any other additional cost increases. And we are under the same parameters as a division as you are as individuals with regards to inflationary pressures, as well as any other contracts that may have to be negotiated or revised and cost into next year. So that's what we have available going into next year when we're talking in a number of realms, whether it's consultants on the board, whether it's salaries and wages, whether it's strictly the cost of supplies moving forward. So the committee wanted the board to discuss two options after their discussion. The first option being that division cover benefits to a maximum of 90% of premium costs for plans under single premiums. So that means the intention is that if you elect to take family benefits, the division would pay up to the 90% of single towards that. If you were taking single benefits, the division would be paying 90% there. If you had to, because you're eligible, seek coverage elsewhere, there would be an equivalent reimbursement. And then the second option was whether the division coverage of benefits to a maximum of 50% of premium costs. The same sort of parameters. It's single or family, or if you're seeking exterior, it would be the dollar reimbursement equivalent of. So that's the backgrounder. I think on behalf of the finance committee that they've discussed that thus far. They didn't come forward with a final recommendation. They felt it was important that the board as a whole kind of look at the options that they had discussed and what they had narrowed down to, but kind of have a discussion with regards to these last two options. They want to bring forward.
Thank you, Mr. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Lepka. Thank you, Madam Chair. The way I would like to proceed, we have two potential motions for us, right? I would like to put one motion, which of the motion ever comes forward, and then debate that out. Right, so then that we smooth sail on this process. Clarification question?
Just a question. So if we chose this 90% of the premium cost for single, and that person, can they decide, I don't want all of it, I just want dental, or I just want vision, you can still do that. And that would be 90% of that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just clarifying.
Thank you. So yeah, that's the limit for us. Have someone put the motion on the floor so we can debate it. Yeah, go ahead.
I move that the board. That's a recommendation. I move that the board provide benefits to a maximum of 90% of premium costs equal to single coverage through ASEBP, or reimbursed for an alternative program of the trustees choosing if ineligible.
Okay. So we have motion one on the floor. Okay. So then I will open that up for Discussion. Okay, go ahead.
Ed, you mentioned, it depends on how comfortable we as trustees feel in getting benefits. I personally am very comfortable with trustees getting the benefits. Keeping in mind that most boards have already been getting this for who knows how long. And I think if we do go with the single, it's not causing the board as much hurt, a lot less money. So that's what I'm.
Discussion on the floor. Yeah, go ahead. Trustee Margot.
Unfortunately, I see the opposite of Liz. As a trustee, I believe that one of our main jobs is to be fiscally responsible. And my concern is by putting a percentage on, what is that going to look like in subsequent years? So if we have a 90% maximum and then next year those funds are needed in instructional, what is that going to look like? How are we going to then view that? How is, like that would be my concern, is if putting a maximum on it. I just worry about incremental increases in future years.
Thank you for that. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that this is a good option. I think it's a minimal amount of money at the 16,000 that it would cost, and that's at the far side of it. That's of everybody in the 90%. And I'm also very grateful because I am the ineligible person. I am the only one here, so we're talking about me. You put Donna there under. But I just think it's a really good option, and I see it as probably most of the public think we already have benefits, because out of 61 school boards, I believe there's only about 4 or 5 that don't. So I think that's very fair. So I would. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I too think that it's a good option. And I believe that likely most everybody thinks that we have that already. You know, I mean, as people that work in the schools, like teachers, assistants, the janitors, staff, everybody, or most everybody, I believe, has got coverage. Right? So I would be in favor of it.
Trustee, okay, trustee Miller, I was gonna ask trustee Leonard if he has any. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a bit of a hard time with this one, although I do feel and understand that this is something that we as trustees should be receiving. My issues are in the areas of that we're committing to inflation. Essentially, we're committing ourselves to a percentage point. Pretty much for the rest of this board's existence, because it's going to be really hard to claw back in any subsequent years. And I would rather grow slow than move fast forward. And we're basing this decision on the future, not on today's reality, that some of us may already have benefits through spouses, that some of us may not take everything, that some of us are single and others are family. We have to look at the max number going forward. And we don't know if our cap will get smaller in subsequent years with things that are happening provincially, or it will grow, but we are committing ourselves and moving money around to do so. And it's kind of at what cost, right? That we are taking up the room that we have as buffers or allowance for other growth to make this decision. And that's where my concerns are with this.
Thank you, trustee Miller. Trustee Leonard. Words of wisdom.
Yeah, I probably at the moment be against this motion. Just with the state that our board's in right now, looking at the state of other boards, I understand that, especially in our jurisdiction and in boards similar to us, we're the only one that doesn't have any benefits. But also, we're one of the only boards amongst those that are doing relatively well financially too. And I think that we can, I don't want to jeopardize that, and I understand the complaints a lot of the other boards make where the government doesn't give us enough money, the government doesn't give us enough money, but I mean, we have to work with what we're given, and we have to be smart in what we spend our money on. And at this moment, with the fourth quarter financial statement we got today, I wouldn't be in support of this. That's not to say that at a later time, if that funding is changed, that I wouldn't support it, but at this moment, I don't think I can support this.
Thank you all for those comments. And again, this is no surprise to me. One of the longest serving trustees here, but I don't think in my time here, I think this discussion came up briefly and then we left it, right? And now that it happened, this is the only time that I've seen it coming straight to the floor here and having a very good discussion about it through finance and then coming back up here. To me, timing is everything. Again, is this the best time to do any of this right now? I don't know, but at the end of the day, when we look at our financial responsibilities and fiduciary responsibilities, there will be place and time for some of these to come up, which then the perception and the public perception really wouldn't be a matter. And at this time, it's not that the public perception will be an issue, but then financially, where we are right now isn't the right time. That's just my opinion.
In my opinion, we're doing very well. You just gave us a surplus when we were looking at $1 million deficit. And 16,000 out of, what's our budget, 43 million? It isn't very much. And it also, we're going with this lower option where the estimated benefit cost at the top that ever be right now is 16,000. That still leaves the higher amount of the vast room available, 61,000, which would be available for raises or whatever, other things. So in my mind, this is the best time to do it. That's my opinion.
Yes, I totally agree. We're in a good position right now. Also, if Michael and Don and Colleen and Henry didn't have benefits already in place, you probably would be more interested in supporting this, I would say. I mean, I have benefits too elsewhere, but I'm going to retire soon.
Maybe Joanna doesn't have.
Just to that note, I think though, we have to look beyond this current board. We have to look beyond the next 3 years. If the board changes and let's say all 8 people needed full benefits, we're not looking at 16,000 in 4 years. So to your point, I understand, but I also think that we have to be forward thinking. We're not just thinking of today, we're thinking of future, basically allocated funds leaving the division.
So you realize this is based on 8 trustees.
Right.
So this is what it will be. And if there was an increase, it was like a $10, I think, per year.
But we can't control.
We can't control
Sure.
inflation, no, and we
Right.
can't control what the government's gonna give us and all the other things. So I can't see jumping to on the total amount.
Trustee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just my last comment on this. Maybe just to correct an assumption, I do not have benefits elsewhere. My family does not have benefits elsewhere. And I'm not making this decision based on my needs. Kind of just what's best, what I see within financials, what's best for the future, iterations of boards. That's why I'm moving in the direction that I am on this motion.
Thank you. So before I see the first motion, that is on the table, so I will now probably just call the question, so we can move forward on this. And I would like to do a roll call.
Mr. Chair,
yeah,
can I ask
sorry.
a recorded vote, please?
Okay. All right, so we'll start, if I may start with Joey.
I'm not in favor.
Joey. Marilyn,
I'm in favor.
Michael,
No.
Trustee Donna,
I am in favor.
please.
Yes.
Trustee Miradon,
Against.
and for myself, Henry, I'm against it for now. Okay, so the motion is defeated. Thank you all for the time and patience. And again, that's the beauty of what we do around the table here, right? As governors, sometimes we have to make some of these decisions. But like I've said, and all of you, we've heard each other very clearly, right? Timing is everything. And I understand financially, when we're looking at everything, we can look at the appropriate time. All right, thank you. We will move to committee reports. See finance, we're talking money again. Okay, and that is attached. Any question or comments? No. Okay. All right. ACSTA. Yeah, go ahead.
If I could just, I have nothing to add, but if I could just highlight 3 specific items, that's okay, thank you. So the first item is actually the second bullet, and that a theme was created, and it's called Walking Together in Catholic Education. This document was scanned and emailed to you earlier for your information. So it gives you the background of who is involved in that and what it's about. The second item is that the executive of ACSTA is currently touring the province, meeting with member boards. So I believe they've reached out and they're trying to set a meeting date to meet with this board. So I think we'll just leave it up to administration in the area to do that, but I think that's exciting. So I hope to see them soon. And the very last bullet I'm very proud about, and that's what reported this, I guess, to the school councils that Jillian and I have been to so far this year, and 2 more next week, that STAR came in 3rd among all Canadian school boards for collection of tunes for tuitions. So congratulations.
Question, the Grace launch, is that September or October?
It was discussed at the meeting, but the following Monday, Grace was actually having a meeting to set all of that. So I would check with the Grace director if that information has been provided to you.
Because I was saying October, September 13th.
Oh, okay, my apologies. So what that is September 13th, they were having a meeting with Grace to share this information
Okay.
and set a plan for it.
Sorry. It launched September 13th.
But it did launch September 12th, and it's been on social media already from Alberta Catholic School Trustees Association and other areas.
Because it's on social media, I didn't see nothing through my email. So, okay, all right.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, was that something I should have shared with the board prior?
Yeah, with you also.
Okay.
That's okay.
Noted.
Yeah, for sure. Some of us don't put it on social media, unfortunately. That's my reality, my world. Okay. On that last note there, I would like to again congratulate admin for supporting our students for tuition and the good work again that we did at the Church of First People in Edmonton, making that donation. And that gives me comfort as a trustee that when we discuss some of these, and we talked about it, and we say, oh, this is what we can do to support the process to payroll deductions, and when we have our reflection day and other gatherings, and then encourage as well our high school during their celebrations to donate towards, especially Tuesdays for Tuesday. So thank you, admin, and extend our thanks to the rest of the school sites and principals that are helping move these social projects forward to make that look beautiful. So I'm glad to see that throughout the country, and that is very impressive. All right. Thank you. Okay, so we have one in-camera item. Just ask our executive assistants, the rest can stay here, right? Yeah. Oh, she can stay here too. Yeah, okay, then. Everybody stays, and if you can, yes, make the motion.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Sorry, yeah.
I move as for policy 7, 5.6, other topics that a majority of the trustees present should be held in private in the public interest. So I move to.
Thank you. So we are in camera. Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah,